Hey everybody, it's Mark Masters. It's Monday night. It's Always Bookin Comedy. Let me see what's going on with our guest today. And um, and for now, we'll just, I guess, treat this like a solo episode in case he doesn't show up. Let's see what happens. Okay, solo episode. We'll talk about recent things. I just did a show in LaPorte, Indiana. That was kind of interesting. I did an hour in LaPorte, Indiana, in a bar. Not too rowdy, pretty nice group. How is the new car? We'll get into that in a little bit. But LaPorte, I flew into Chicago, did a couple shows at the Laugh Factory, which was pretty fun. And yeah, it was kind of interesting. Laugh Factory the night before. First show was pretty normal. Basically sold out the lower level and just, material, jokes, setup, punchline, laughter. The late show, it was like 20% full, maybe. Very different energy. And I went right after the host. And I don't think anybody's going to be able to figure out who the host was. So I don't mind really saying this. The host ate it pretty bad doing material. And so I was like, well, material is not going to work in this situation. And I did a 12-minute set. And I would say about 8 minutes of that was talking to the audience and just getting to know them and getting them excited and interested in doing comedy. And did a few minutes of jokes, went okay, a bunch of callbacks to the crowd work stuff. That was kind of new. It was nice that I was doing two spots, because if I was only doing that late spot, I in the past have only wanted to do material. You're at a comedy club, you got this opportunity, and every time I regret it. I do all material, I eat it, and I feel bad about myself because I'm doing my best material and it doesn't go well. And you got to learn, I think. I did, by the way, I asked the manager of the club if they had any rules about doing material in the middle of the host set, because I saw the host eating it and realized if I was going to be successful, I was going to have to do some crowd work. So I went and talked to the manager, which I don't think is the actual manager, but is the person on duty that night. And she said, you can do whatever you want. And then I noticed some of the other veteran comics after me were doing a bunch of crowd work as well. So that was definitely the right move. But anyways, the next day, I did one of these. There are a bunch of national bookers that book, bar shows basically around the country. And I did one of these shows, like I said, in LaPorte, Indiana. It's about an hour and a half from Chicago. They don't pay particularly well, usually, these shows, but you get good stage time and you can sell a lot of merch. So that's nice. And I told this particular booker, as long as somebody drove me, I would be fine doing the gig. But like the economics just wouldn't have worked to have rented a car and have dealt with that. So anyways, I flew into Chicago, did the Laugh Factory, woke up the next day, and I got picked up by this kid who had worked with me before. He was an opener on a different national booker gig in Duluth, Minnesota. And the booker for LaPorte, Indiana, posted to Facebook, can anybody open for Mark Masters? Apparently this kid hopped on and was like, oh, I've worked with him before. I'd love to work with him again. And so we drove out there and it was fun. It was a interesting crowd, very loose set on my part. Did a lot. For me, a lot of crowd work. I'd say out of the 60 minutes, I probably did 10 to 15 minutes of, talking to the audience, getting some kind of something we could all agree on that was funny, and looping back to it throughout the set. One thing I found out while talking to audience members was that there were two high schools in town, and the mascots were the Satellites and the Slicers, which I thought was pretty interesting. The Slicers were because of a meat processing plant that is now no longer in business. So I did a good 3 to 4 minutes just about the out of business meat slicing plant, which I'm sure you can make your own guesses as to what I talked about, what would be funny as to a reason that a meat processing plant would go out of business. I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to be a full-on solo episode at this point because I have not heard from Jake. So we'll find some stuff to talk about. The new car is fine. That was a question that was online. I've been using it with every comic that's come into town recently. I sent out my monthly email newsletter the other day, and there was a picture from the car of a herd of buffalo, which was pretty neat. I love that when I drive out-of-town comics. In that case, I was driving a Denver comedian up to Vail, Colorado, and there's a spot where you can see herds of buffalo as you drive from Denver to the mountains, and it's kind of neat, especially neat to show like a New York City comedian who has never seen anything like a buffalo, depending on where they grew up. So these, maybe some more questions from online would be helpful, but in the meantime, I'm going to go look at, I keep a little spreadsheet of all my gigs. It is not up to date at the moment, but I'm going to see what else I've been up to. Let's see. So I went by Ratio Brewing the other day, which is a Denver showcase. It's a weekly Wednesday night showcase. I was very impressed. Did a great job packing it out. I haven't been there in a couple years, and it was pretty cool to see. It's run by three guys: Matt Kobos, Patrick Richardson, and Corey Healy. So LaPorte, Indiana, by the way, I performed at the Hilltop Inn. Thank you, Hilltop Inn, and thank you, Mike Stricker, who drove me. What I don't have down here is a couple days after I flew back, I did a show up in Vail at El Sabor with Catherine Blanford, which was pretty neat. She had a gig in Aspen, actually Snowmass, but it's basically Aspen. And she came in and did a show at El Sabor, and we broke every sales record we've ever had. I mean, the show a week before sold out, and we did 85. But when we had 85 there, I noticed there were 5 empty chairs kind of near the back. And so I was like, well, next week we're going to try for 90. And it honestly didn't look like we were going to get there because we only had like 30 tickets sold a couple days before the show. But we ended up breaking 100. Just kind of got lucky. We sold out at 94. It's kind of a quirky thing about show running. Once we got to 94, the sellout would have been 95. But I usually just, if there's a single ticket left, I'll just mark it as sold out because I feel like it's better for the marketing of the show for people to see that it's sold out. It will give them a sense of urgency in the future. It can be very difficult to sell a single ticket. So we sold out at 94, and we had a ton of walk-ups. And everybody, I just said, yes, we'll let you in. We'll find a way. Just hang out here for a little bit. And we snuck them into the back of the showroom where there's plenty of room. There's no chairs. And a volunteer actually found some wooden benches from outside on a patio and brought them in for those people. So I think we can go even higher in the future. But I don't know how many. We have one show at the end of the month with Carmen Lagala at that venue, and it sounds like the venue wants to take a little bit of a break, which is classic comedy show running. Sold out every show this year, and I think it's a staffing issue, but I'm not 100% what's going on there. Obviously, they're very happy with the business we're doing. Okay, we got a question. Do you have strong opinions on crowd work? Generally, I don't like it. I feel almost guilty saying that I did all that crowd work. I think there are situations where it's important to recognize. I'm definitely getting better at it. It's a skill. It's a little bit like a magic trick. I remember when I started comedy being so impressed with comedians that were very good at crowd work, and have since seen them a lot and realized that they're telling recycled jokes that seem spontaneous, but that's so important. It can be difficult to make material feel spontaneous. And I would say one of the most frustrating things about crowd work, let's say you're doing a 30-minute set, you do like 28 minutes of material, somebody drops something or somebody's just loud and you need to shut them up. And so you talk to them. If you make a joke in that moment, 9 times out of 10, the audience will laugh harder at that spontaneous moment that you invented out of thin air than a joke you've been working on for 5 years. It's maddening. It's so frustrating how spontaneous comedy can be so much funnier than well-owned material. It's a real bummer. So anyways, I'm not always a fan of crowd work. I like comics that do, Sam Talent is kind of famous for not telling jokes. And you'll see a lot of comics do like 10 minutes and 10 minutes in be like, well, I haven't told a joke yet. And that's kind of a lie. They've been telling jokes along the way and people have been laughing, but it doesn't seem like there's any structure or written material. Oh my goodness, we got a guest. We made it 11 minutes in. Let's see. Was there one more? Was there a note? Let's see. And we'll pull you in a second here, Jake. I'm not crazy about an excessive amount of it. It seems like a crutch. It makes the audience think they need to be more involved in the show. So on opener 2 weeks ago, did maybe 2 bits. Yeah, I'll say it's not good. Or it can be bad. We'll ask Jake. We'll see what he thinks about it. Then went straight into awkward crowd work. That'll be good. Hey, Jake, how are you? Jake Silberman from New York City. Can you hear me? Check.
I can. How's it going?
Why don't you rotate that phone? Because you're. Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, it's not rotating out.
That's okay. We'll deal with it.
Okay.
Hey, what do you think about comics doing crowd? Oh, there you go.
There we go.
You're a genius.
The question is crowd work.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
I don't know. It's changed a lot. When I think I caught the part of the question where it was the opener who was doing it. When I was coming up, when I came up with like the Helium Comedy Club in Portland, they basically said like, as the opener, you don't talk to the crowd at all.
Of course.
That was just like thing. And but then when I moved to New York, every host does crowd work almost exclusively. It's like a complete crowd work. They don't.
And it's good.
It is good.
Fun.
It is good.
I think my opinion on the New York City hosting style is it brings the audience together, and they're total strangers. But then 10 minutes later, they kind of know each other, and it feels like a group that's together. They're in it together.
Yeah, totally. I think you got to be good at it, though. A lot of people fail at it, and then it makes the crowd feel weird. And like when I was in London, they did almost exclusively crowd work, but a lot of the hosts I saw were not that good at it. So it felt kind of like you were just interviewing the audience. And then
it's like a census poll.
No one felt like it wasn't a room to be funny. It was just like, oh, we just all got these questions asked to us. So if you're good at it, I think it's great.
Yeah. And I'd say you're good at it. I mean, I was talking about Sam Talent earlier as an example of a comic who like doesn't tell jokes sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's really like, we just did a show together and you killed with that family interaction thing.
Yeah.
It was not pre-written at all.
Yeah.
I was also talking about how spontaneous it's frustrating how that kind of stuff can get such bigger pops than material you've worked on for years.
I think it's just because it feels so alive and in the moment that they're just like, wow, I can't believe you made that up. That's so
It's
crazy.
Like a magic trick.
It is a magic trick. So now crowd work has become so ubiquitous that like, and a lot of people, I think, because it seems like all it is asking questions, a lot of comics think they can do it, but it's a skill like anything else.
Yeah.
It's not. Some people are bad at it.
So let me give you a hypothetical that I talked about earlier. You go up at the Laugh Factory in Chicago, which we've both done.
Yeah.
And there's like 20 people in the audience. You got a 10 to 12 minute set. And the host before you just ate it with 10 minutes of material. Would you do crowd work in that situation? Showcase show, big club.
I would probably do that, or like something I would probably try to start a little loose because they probably just feel like really like on edge, But also if you have good material and somebody had bad material, they might still be like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think each room is different. Each show is different, but I think it's definitely important I saw this thing on the stand-up Reddit like a couple weeks ago, speaking of like crowd work and stuff, is like how they were talking. I think this was at like the Cellar or the Stand, one of the main clubs here in New York. And they were this guy was like, I just went to the show and every comic did crowd work and none of them watched the previous set. So they were asking the same question. And he was saying like, eventually the audience was answering the question
Yeah,
for
I've seen
them.
that before.
So
It's the worst.
you also can't do that. You have to at least know what you're getting into, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure.
So yeah, I think it's all different. I've opened for
Okay.
Big J Okerson a couple times,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, "Hey, do you mind if I do crowd work? I know you were going to do a lot." And he goes, "I don't care. I'll figure. If you ask something, I'll." He was very confident. He's like, "I'll figure something else out. Don't
Yeah,
worry about it." So
that's cool.
yeah.
That's cool. When you headline, if you had an opener ask you if they could do crowd work, what would you tell them?
Um,
If you didn't, let's say you didn't know them to make it.
yeah, I would say I usually say like do whatever you want. I don't really want to like put limits on people. Um, a guy just opened for me, and I thought it was a little weird. He did like a 10-minute set, and out of his 10 minutes, he did about 8, and it just of crowd work, and it
Yeah,
just didn't go that well. And I was kind of like, well, dude, if you're gonna do it, you got to kind of land it because
right.
now it's
Yeah,
weird. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I would look at the audience size. If it's a big audience, I don't care at all. But if there are
yeah,
12 people there
yeah,
and somebody's doing like half an hour before me, I
right,
kind of want them to do mostly material because they
yeah,
will talk to all 12 people.
yeah.
And then when
You
I get up
will.
on stage, it's like, who am I going to talk to?
Yeah, you have nobody. Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. If you have nothing else, do whatever. Don't bomb, I guess. Like it's like better to not bomb if you're like the material is not working. Do
Right.
it, you know. And I do kind of think that once you're the headliner, yeah, it would suck if they kind of ate all the crowd work, but also like you're kind of getting paid to be the best comic, so your joke should also work too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you kind of are being the guy, so you should probably do that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. All right, let's pivot into like a show. I don't know. You do a lot of road work. Very
Yep.
impressive.
Yeah.
Why don't you like pretend I don't know you? Give me like the 90
Sure.
seconds of your comedy career.
Yeah. I started comedy. I just hit my 12-year anniversary. I did it basically in Portland, Oregon for 9 years, and I moved out to New York City, where I've been living for just over 2. Yeah, I've been on the road more and more each year the last few years. Basically, starting the pandemic is when I went full time. Like I had a full time office job, and I was doing comedy full time in Portland. And then the pandemic hit, and both those went away. And then when things came back, I just didn't look for another job, and I was able to kind of keep doing it. But yeah, this is like the last 3 years have been road, and then like this year we're already doing a ton of stuff.
So, do you have like a strategy in terms of like markets, like going back to the same places, or do you just
Yeah,
go wherever?
I mean, it's at this point I don't have a big social media following, so really it's like where can I go that I have connections? Like I was just, we just saw each other a week and a half ago. It's like in Colorado, I just know a lot of people now, and I
Mhm.
can do multiple things. I did the Boulder Club, and then I did Denver Comedy Underground back-to-back weekends, and like so I just, you go where people
Oh, let's
will.
talk about the underground. It's
Yeah.
brand new. They moved to a new location. I'm sure you've done the old location. Why
Hmm.
don't you talk a little bit about Denver
It
Comedy?
was great. It was great. Yeah, I actually have done the both. They used to have they used to be in the basement of this bar called the Irish Snug, and I did that. And
Oh yeah.
then they also were in the basement. After that, they were in the basement of like a Universalist church, and I did that I think twice. And then yeah, I just got back yesterday from a weekend at the new location, which is like their own building, and it's great. I mean, you know, whatever he's doing to get people in, it's nice when a club I feel like can get 100+ people in for a guy they don't know. Like that's I don't know. They must be doing something right because like they don't know who I am. I mean,
Right.
I had a few people come out, but like for the majority of the people, they're just like, we just came to see a comedy show tonight, and we're expecting it to be good. And so,
Right.
I like that. I like that. I mean, those are the rooms I'm playing right now. Is like more like we're here to see a comedy show. Every once in a while, it's like I'm setting up shows that it's like pretty much if you know me, I guess you'll come. But for the most part, I'm doing rooms where it's like we just hope that this comedian is good, and
Yeah.
that's yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, comedy is very different from music. People
yeah,
just go see
yeah,
comics that
yeah.
they don't know. You'd never do that with a band. Or
Not
I mean,
really.
or at least maybe in a certain genre you might, but you
Yeah,
wouldn't just go totally blind into a
totally,
musical situation.
totally. Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, obviously that audience trusts Ben, who's curating good shows.
Yeah, and it
Did
has a
you
name.
do well with merch sales there? Did it seem like a
Yeah, pretty well. I mean, each night I was selling, like each night I sold a fair amount, and yeah, it definitely helped the overall trip for sure.
nice? And was
Yeah,
it 2 shows a night, Friday,
yeah,
Saturday?
2 Friday, 2 Saturday. Yeah, and they were all good. It was funny. It was like we got to the last one, the late Saturday. I was like, this is, on a
Yeah,
full weekend, usually one is bad, and I was like, fuck, is it really going to be the last show? But it was fun. All the shows were fun. So
that's rad.
yeah.
Any openers you want to shout out? Anybody who's particularly good or surprised you or
I mean, it's funny because I'm in Denver so often. I know all these people now.
yeah,
Like it was Aaron Rose, Sammy at Anzer,
Inzer?
and then Jacob Rupp. And then it
Oh,
was
those are
like
killers.
Adam Kane Holland did a set, which was cool to see him. I hadn't seen him in
Whoa.
a while.
You like
Yeah.
dropped in and did a in the middle?
He's like looking for a tape, so he just did like a 5 to 7. Ben did a couple sets. Yeah, so all friends, which was nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sound, everything, lighting. I mean, it seems like a great room. It's
Yeah,
very
it's all pretty buttoned up now. I mean, they seem to really be kind of dialing in. And I really like, here's the thing that I really do like about their club, and I wish more clubs would do it, especially like Ben's club is an independent club. It's not a chain, it's just him running it. They have somehow figured out, they must have much less money in a budget to provide 2 cameras and you get the tapes. Same with Comedy Fort, 2 camera angles.
yeah.
I mean, I go to these big, giant chain clubs and they don't have a camera system that will just like at the end of the weekend be like, here's your tape. Like, I don't know why it's 2025. Every comic now has to bring.
How do they do it? They like Google Drive or how is
Yeah, they'll Google Drive it to you. That's what they did in the last
Yeah,
club at
cool.
the church. And it's just like, I don't get it. Why these clubs, I mean, it's like a one time, I mean,
Yeah, I
Comedy
mean
State
for
does it, but most big clubs do not have like a high definition camera system, and
right.
it's just like,
Well, it's good business, right? Because if you
yeah,
post that clip, I mean,
it's the background.
I sent you a clip from one of my shows because I was like, because you killed in it, and I was like, this would be great if Jake posts this.
Yeah,
You know, it
yeah,
could drive business.
it's the background, or it's like,
Yeah,
oh hey,
yeah,
but I don't. For some reason, they probably just feel like we don't have to do this because a comic, if he wants to tape, they'll bring their own. But it would be so nice for the comics to be like,
yeah,
oh, I don't have to worry about that,
yeah.
So.
Okay, so we were talking about strategy, going around the country. So you go to markets where you know people.
Yeah, I've just,
And
built connections, and then like obviously you're always trying to break into new places that you haven't been. And I think kind of the next step, kind of like what you're doing a lot, is kind of setting up shows that just like either in like a smaller market where maybe there's not much competition, or like maybe you have a random fan base or something, or people have been requesting you go there. But like I think going to a smaller place, you're like, all right, I might be the only comedy show.
tell me about like one of the more successful versions of that you've done.
Where have I been recently? I I've set up a couple when I was still out in Portland. I set up a show in this very cool, like kind of like hip bar in Port Townsend, Washington, which is kind of like out on the peninsula a bit. And there's no club there. I had met a person, basically. I'd met a person who saw me at Portland. They're like, "We'd love for you to come up and do a show in our town." And I was
How
like,
long a
"Well,
drive is that from Portland?
maybe like 3-ish hours or something,
Oh
three,
yeah, yeah.
four
So pretty
hours.
far
Yeah.
away. Totally different
Yeah.
market. Yeah.
Totally different market. Yeah. And they were like, "Hey, we live in this tiny town. There's no comedy club. We loved your set." So they just gave me the guy's email, and I think they knew him. And I ended up
But like
doing
a restaurant or a bar?
it's like it was a cool bar. It was a very hip bar. I think they did food as well. But we just set up a show and figured it out. And I actually ended up being able to go back once more to that place.
Nice.
So
did you bring equipment, or did they have it there for like bands?
They had equipment, but I did bring the openers. I just brought 2 Portland openers.
Nice.
And so it was all good. Yeah.
And did you sell tickets online? Is that how you made your money, or did they pay you
I
flat?
think we just did a guarantee, if I remember correctly. I think that one was just like, this is kind of what I want for a show, and they were like, that sounds good to us. We'll just give you that, and then
Did they ticket, or did they just make it a free show?
I'm not now. I think they ticketed it on their own because
That's better.
Yeah. It was nice. It was just like I didn't have to worry about sales, and both shows sold pretty well. So I don't think they were too upset about just giving me the flat amount, because I think they, with tickets and booze, they probably made out pretty well.
How much time was there between the 2 times you went there? Like 6 months or
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
were you worried about doing similar material, or did you do completely different material, or how did
I
you
probably
adjust?
did pretty different material, because like I for sure remember the first show was very loose, and I did like probably a lot of crowd work. I also did like, I remember I at the end, I like this, there's a piano in it, because I think they had bands usually. So
Yeah.
there was like a full piano, and I was like, does anybody want to like play while I finish my set? And I brought this guy up, and he probably played for like 10 or 15 minutes as I was closing, and that was like a fun thing. And so I don't think I probably was tripping about
Yeah.
material. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
So you did it twice. Why didn't you do it a third time? Is it because you moved to New York City?
I think it was A, I was moving, and B, I believe the owners that I knew were selling it. So I don't think
Okay.
I think I kind of lost the connection. And I also, yeah, it was definitely in my last like year or two of Portland anyway. So it was probably like
Nice.
time to
And
go.
so what were some of the advantages? Like that's 3 hours away. Why not just do spots in Portland?
I mean, A, I'm headlining, so I'm getting to do like 45 to an hour, whereas that's
Huge.
not going to happen in Portland. B, like even with the drive, I'm still going to make way more money out there
Right.
than I was at a night in Portland. And also, you just should be doing different rooms in different markets, and you should be going in front of, I mean, a Portland audience and a small town in Washington audience is different, and you should
Yeah.
be able to see if your stuff is working in both areas. So yeah, you should definitely be on the road and like testing it, not just in one town, because then you're like, basically you're good in one town. You got to see if
Right.
you're good everywhere. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that work at the Helium? Do they have like a ladder system that you like move up, or can you talk about that real quick?
They basically would use their open mic as the ladder. So like when I started, it was actually, you could see yourself. I mean, it was moving down,
Okay.
moving up, so you would start as a new comic. You would be in the first, like, if you got on, you'd be in the first like four, basically.
Okay.
And then like the way that the old manager did it is like, oh, we like his stuff. Maybe he's in like the 5 to 7, and like as you progressed, because the way they used to do it is they would give like open micers maybe spots 1 through, I think it was like a 24, 25 spot mic, 1 through, let's say, like 18. And the rest were comics who had been passed at the club, and they would all do 5 minutes, and the headliner, I think, would do 7. So it
Okay.
was threes, fives, and 1 7. And so the closer you got to the fives, it was like, oh, like I'm kind of like the next up. So I remember the first time I got a 5, I wasn't passed yet, but they were like, basically like, we want to see what your 5 is like. And then what they did back in the day was they would do kind of like a host audition show. And so me and like the other people who've been working close, they probably put like 4 or 5 of us on, and we each did like 10 to 12 minutes, like basically what a hosting club set would be. And then
Right.
afterwards, the way at least it worked for me is they came up to me and were like, hey, we liked your stuff, we want to start hosting you here. And then they would just put you on the calendar for weekends and stuff. And then once you were passed, though, it was fun because, yeah, you got to be on the open mic every Tuesday as a 5 minute set.
Mm.
And that open mic at Helium was like 100, 120
Yeah, I've done
people.
it before. It's
It was
great.
like Comedy Works, basically. Like it's
Yeah.
like as a show, basically, that you
Yeah,
get to
and
do
they
at home.
tape. You got to pay for your tape, but there's a
You got to
guy
pay for your
taping
tape,
in with
but
a
yeah, you could.
soundboard.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and it just became, that was like every
Oh,
Tuesday
that's a
you would
big
go
thing.
there.
I don't did the this is what I would like clubs to do always is give you the tape plus the soundboard plus a
Yeah,
mic of the
yeah,
audience would be amazing.
yeah.
Like it is extra work, but it's not that hard.
No, it's not. It's not. And it would
Especially if you have
be,
a physical location. Like there was a time where I was trying to collect all that and give it to the comics.
yeah,
And it's a pain because I set up a comedy club at a thin air in like half an hour and I break it all down and throw it into my car. So like
totally.
it's hard for me to do. But a
Yeah.
club, I mean, and if you have the same location, it's not that difficult.
No, it's not. A lot, yeah. Maybe again, the clubs are just like, why would we do that? You can do it if you want to do
Yeah,
that. So
like that's kind of an old school mentality. I think you would
yeah,
want to do that if you knew what you were
totally,
doing. Like
totally.
there's a big club I won't name that does give you tape. You usually have to pay for it, but the tape is terrible. It looks like security camera footage. It's like very
Yeah.
cold. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it
No, a
just
lot
looks
of them are like that. They have like one weird angle from above, and
yeah,
it's like, dude, like I could use this, but it's like grainy. It's not HD. You don't know.
yeah.
You haven't like lit it right, so it like I'm gonna appear weird,
Yeah.
and that
Exactly.
looks cheap for your club. So yeah, either do it right or just like almost don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there markets you're looking to crack into? What's next on your agenda?
I mean, there's markets. I mean, it's more just like, uh, well, now it's just like I'll go anywhere if the money is right. It's just like it's not even about just like, oh, I want to do the South more. It's like I'll do the South if it's like worth it to me to get a plane
Well, here's a
ticket
good
just to
question.
come there.
Tell me about an opportunity you took where the money was okay, but you had to like be frugal to make it work. You got any good stories like that?
I
Come from New
think
York City, like you're leaving New York City, and
Yeah, I mean, I think if you do some of these like smaller clubs, I don't know if anything I can think of anything off the top of my head, but sometimes you'll take an opportunity just because you're like, even if it's like maybe like opening for somebody, like, all right, like after I like get the ticket and whatever, and like maybe I'm kind of breaking even, but it was worth it to get in front of this club, I'll do that, because it's like it's basically that's like more of an audition for work.
right,
But that is a little I'm willing to do that a little less now because of like, I need to make money.
right,
So,
right, and you're probably getting better opportunities as
yeah,
well, so you can be a
totally.
little more choosy.
Totally.
But any like you ever, I don't know, get a show in DC and you're like, well, if I take the Greyhound for 14 hours, this is worth it.
Yeah, I did that in Boston. I hadn't really done comedy in Boston and I wanted to
Took the
do these
Funghwa bus.
shows. I actually didn't because the guy was already going up there, so we split a car rental, but then we didn't stay. We just did a up and down and then I dropped it off the next day. So after everything, we probably each made a little bit of money, but
Mm.
it was like, but again, like,
Boston's at least in my world notorious for not paying. Like I'll be there in a month.
yeah.
I'm doing multiple shows. No, not even a hint or discussion of payment. It's
Oh.
just every time I go through there, you do these showcase shows. Nobody's paying anybody.
Oh,
Nobody's.
damn. Yeah, I wouldn't now. Most likely, I'm not traveling unless it's for some
Yeah. So
money.
I have
Yeah.
I have other gigs around
Okay.
it. So
Yeah.
they're like add-ons. This is a Sunday night. So I have like the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I have a Monday as well. And so I was
Yeah.
looking for something Sunday. And so I wanted paid work and I tried like all the clubs and couldn't get in to anything. And then I dropped down a level and then I got these multiple showcases and it's like, oh,
Sure.
they're fun. I've done one of them before and it's like a good room, but
Yeah.
like it's just bizarre to me that there's not like I've done it before, and like the showrunner's just like, great job, hope to see
See
you
you
again.
later. Yeah. See you later. Crazy.
Because I went kind of thinking, there's no discussion of it, but he's gonna slip me. I mean, not a lot of money, $20,
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
something. But
Something. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Boston's a fun market and
Yeah.
young, so that's hard for me. Like you talked about doing different kinds of rooms. I have historically struggled with younger audiences. I've gotten
Sure.
better at it.
Yeah.
Basically just making fun of myself.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, I got a great question for you. Have you done any black rooms?
Yeah. Worst bomb of my life was in a black room.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear about because I'm doing Chocolate Sunday. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Oh, you're doing that?
Yeah,
Nice.
this July, and
Okay.
the closest I've ever done was like a mic where it was like 2/3 people
Sure.
of color in the audience. But
Yeah.
where did you do yours, and how do how do
Um.
I get there?
This probably have to be my last thing, and then I got to
Okay,
run.
sure.
It was in Portland. It was a black producer who put on this like it was like right around the Thanksgiving holiday, and so it was literally I think the lineup was 6 black comics and me,
Okay.
and it was this huge event space. It was a black Elks Lodge actually, so it was like probably like 250 people there. It was
Is
like
that a real thing?
it was like like they have
Or
like Elks
it was like
Lodges.
a version of Elks Lodge,
It
but
was just like an Elks Lodge, but I think that one particularly was just like all black
huh,
people went there basically.
okay.
So yeah, and did the show up. I was like, okay, it's just I knew I was probably the only white guy in it just because knowing the guy, but I mean they did like a prayer circle before the thing, and it was like a whole thing, and they had a DJ, this old black guy DJ on stage, and he brought you up to music and stuff. And so it was like the host, one comic, and then me. And I was pretty new. I was probably like 2 years into comedy, if that.
Okay.
So, but I had brought like a couple of friends, and they might have been the only white people in the audience,
Right.
and they were sitting up front. And dude, I started okay, and then I used to do a lot of like anti-religious jokes, like very like Doug Stanhope-y kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And truly, I said like one thing about like Christians or Jesus, and it was like no noise. Like all of the noise got sucked out of the room. And on the stage, I was like, "Oh, you guys are all partying tonight, but you're gonna go to church tomorrow." And this like black lady in the back goes, "Mm-hmm," and was just like, just basically fighting for my life after. I remember looking down at my friends and like wouldn't look me in the eye because I was just eating it. And afterwards, like whatever, I like made it through. And the producer, when he was paying me after the show, he was like, "Yeah, man, you're doing good, but you cannot make fun of Jesus in front of black people. Like, you just can't do that." And I was like, "Well, lesson learned."
Lesson
So,
learned.
yeah, very wild.
Yeah, if anybody out there knows a black room or a black circuit, like I'm looking, in between now and July, I got a couple months left. I'd like to get in front of some. Colorado is not the place,
No,
for
it's
me
not.
at least, that I've found
Yeah,
non-Caucasian audiences. It's,
yeah. Go to Chicago, Detroit, New York, Cleveland, somewhere there. But yeah, Denver probably not the place.
Yeah, Atlanta would be a
Yeah,
good one.
yeah.
All right, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks for sticking around a little extra,
Yeah.
and we'll see you around.
Yeah,
We're gonna wrap
appreciate
this
it.
up. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you
Okay.
next Monday. As always.